The Two Popes, Leadership and Comparison by Brianna Carmel.
Breaking news special report.
We are reporting the death of Pope John Paul II at the Vatican. He was 84 years old.
I remember this day almost as vividly as I remember 9/11. I watched eagerly, waiting to see the white smoke, just as billions of others around the world did. It was a time of sorrow and excitement. Mourning a pope beloved by so many, while anticipating what the next papal generation would hold. The Two Popes steps inside the Vatican and shows you what goes on behind closed doors. The Two Popes is a film that takes place following the death of Pope John Paul II. The first leader, Pope Benedict XVI, or Cardinal Ratzinger, and the second leader is Pope Francis, or Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio. The Two Popes is a film that outlines the journey of self-discovery, self-forgiveness, and the coming together of religious leaders who do not always see eye to eye. Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis both have traits and values that are similar and some that differ from one another. Pope Benedict XVI is intelligent, conservative, traditional, self-confident. He has strong moral values, articulate, conscientious, and diligent. Pope Francis is also intelligent. He is determined, persistent. He has integrity, dependable, friendly, diligent, sensitive, and empathetic. Scene 1. Choosing a Pope. Cardinal Ratzinger, or Pope Benedict XVI, wants to be Pope. He uses charisma and social performance to persuade others to choose him. Meanwhile, Cardinal Bergoglio, Pope Francis, does not feel fit to be Pope. His peers use attributional components and behavioral components to convince him he's the right fit. Scene 2. The Garden Discussion. The two leaders have trouble seeing eye to eye. They have different visions for the Church. Pope Francis is futuristic, whereas Pope Benedict is more traditional. This is shown when they're discussing homosexuals and people of divorce. Pope Francis wants to invite them into the Church as part of the in-group, whereas Pope Benedict is more hesitant and would rather them be in an out-group. Pope Francis uses charisma and determination to try to persuade Pope Benedict XVI to allow him to retire and just be a priest for a small church. This doesn't work. Instead, the two begin a journey of leader-member exchange theory. Phase 1, leadership making, they're strangers. Phase 1 shows that their roles are scripted. Their influences are one way. Their exchanges are of low quality, and their interests are of themselves. Change, not compromise. This is a big theme throughout the film. Pope Benedict XVI says, let's compromise. However, Pope Francis says, no, I've changed. He does not feel authentic to himself or a member of the Church to be an authentic leader anymore. The distinction between change and compromise are very important to Pope Francis. They're part of his core values. Scene 3. Becoming friends. The two begin to dig deeper. They ask more personal questions. Pope Francis asks Pope Benedict XVI, why eat alone? He says Jesus is always breaking bread. They talk about their interests, like soccer and music. They're starting to build a dynamic, and this is bringing them to the beginning of entering phase 2, acquaintance. Scene 4, the calling, hearing God's voice. In this moment, Pope Benedict admits that he's having trouble hearing God's voice. This is where you see him and Pope Francis building dynamic and trust with one another. He recalls getting the calling as peaceful. Pope Francis takes this opportunity to open up and share his experience of getting the call. His experience was not peaceful, but rather a very difficult decision for him to make. Phase 2, acquaintance. The two leaders are now in roles that are tested. Their influences are mixed. Their exchanges are of medium quality, and their interests are of themselves and the other. Scene 5. Informational Confessions. Pope Benedict XVI now is riddled with controversy and sex scandals in the church. He's losing trust of his followers. A lot of his critics would argue that he's a laissez-faire leader, in that he, in their eyes, did nothing to help the victims unless he had to. Pope Francis takes this opportunity to confess his dark past as well. His goal was to compromise. He wanted to be a part of the in-group with a political dictator instead of the out-group. This was with the intention to help the Jesuit missionary. Both leaders are seen as traitors to the church. Both did what they thought was best for their followers. Change, not compromise. It's at this moment you see the distinction and why change and not compromise is very important to Pope Francis. The two are working together to discover their own authentic leaderships. Path goal theory is also found within the leaders in the film. According to Nordhaus, theoretically, the path goal approach suggests that leaders need to choose a leadership style that best fits the needs of followers and the working they are doing. Pope Francis does this well with Pope Benedict, but while he was younger and growing as a leader, he missed the mark when leading the Jesuits. He wasn't the kind of leader they needed. He was a directive leader. Instead, the Jesuits were looking for more of a participative or supportive leader. Pope Benedict XVI had the right idea, but lost trust with his followers and saw no success. He also was a directive leader and achievement-oriented. And again, his followers were looking for someone supportive and participative. Scene 6. The Cry Room. Pope Benedict XVI steps down. Doing this is what he believes is for the greater good of the Church. He says, "What damage would I do if I remain?" At this moment, he's becoming an authentic leader and he finds his why. Pope Francis is now elected into a new role, Pope. He finds the leader in himself again. He does it his way, simple, humble, and authentic. He says, "When no one is to blame, everyone is to blame." The two leaders are finally friends, thus bringing us to phase 3 of leader-member exchange. Their roles are negotiated, influences are reciprocal, their exchanges are of high quality, and their interests are of the group. There are issues of leadership throughout the film. A lot of critics to Pope Benedict XVI could argue that he was pseudo-transformational. This is supported by some referring to him as a Nazi leader. Path goal theory was a good idea for the leaders. They were directive leaders and achievement-oriented leaders. They initiated structure and high standard for excellence. The problem here is their followers were unsatisfied, and they needed affiliation, and they needed human touch. Pope Benedict XVI possesses personality characteristics but lacks the actual charisma to have the effects of followers. He loses the trust in a sex scandal. He spoke of intolerance, but yet was found a hypocrite when his close employee fell guilty. They're transformational leaders. Pope Benedict XVI decides to use transformational leadership to help Pope Francis. According to Nordhaus, transformational leadership engages with others and creates a connection that raises the level of motivation and morality in both the leader and the follower. In the end, both transformed one another in their leadership. Through conversations, they helped each other begin to find their why and spark the authenticity within them. The tables turned. In the beginning, Pope Francis's goal was to resign. It resulted in him becoming Pope. Pope Benedict XVI's goal was to become Pope, which resulted in him resigning as Pope. This is a chart of transformational leadership, transactional leadership, and laissez-faire leadership. As you can see, factor 1, idealized influence and charisma. Factor 2, inspirational motivation. Factor 3, intellectual stimulation. And factor 4, individualized consideration. All 4 of these factors can be found in both Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis throughout the film as they grow, develop, and transform into the leaders they end up to be. 2 popes and 2 changed men and leaders. Pope Benedict XVI learns the world is changing and there's a disconnect. Pope Francis learns he has what it takes to lead the Catholic Church. Both learn the power of forgiveness and friendship. They are each other's opposite and balance when it comes to leadership. Through leader-member exchange, paired with transformational leadership, Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis begin to find their whys and evolve into authentic leaders.